The gas you pumped into your car this morning starting next month, it won't exactly be what you think it is. On the other side of the world, Japan just pointed a missile to mainland China for the first time in modern history. China called it a kill network. Nobody's talking about that. And in South Africa, one of the continent's most powerful nations, the military is now walking the streets. Not because of a war, but because of the crimes got so bad the police couldn't handle it alone. You're watching Voices with Anissa Qalbi, and we're getting into all of it right now. The federal government just quietly approved a change to your gas going into your tank. They say it'll save you money. What they're not telling you is that your car will work harder to go the same distance, and older cars could be damaged entirely. As for Japan deploying a missile that can reach mainland China, the range is over 600 miles. China's military newspaper called it a direct threat. This is the most significant military escalation in Asia in years, and it happened with almost no American media coverage. And about 22 soldiers on civilian streets in South Africa. Now a war zone in neighborhoods because gang and illegal mining operations have become so violent, the police alone could no longer contain it. Now, gas prices in the United States have been climbing. The national average has been hovering over $4 a gallon. In parts of California, people are seeing $8. This is not an accident. This is the direct result of the war in Iran, which has effectively shut down the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical oil shipping routes in the world. We spoke about this in depth yesterday's episode, so go watch that. The EPA, that's the Environmental Protection Agency, just issued what they're calling an emergency fuel waiver. It goes into effect May 1st, next month. So what does that mean exactly? Now, most of the gas that we buy at the pump right now is called E10. That means 90% gasoline and 10% ethanol. Ethanol is an alcohol made from corn. It's has been added to American gasoline for years. It raises the octane rating, help for your bones lighter, well, slightly cleaner. And we grow a lot of corn in this country, so it's rapidly and readily available. What the government is now calling it, or what has now approved, is the E15. That means 15% ethanol and 85% gasoline. Normally, E15 is banned from June through September. Why? Because ethanol evaporates faster than gasoline. In summer heat, the extra ethanol turns into smoke-forming pollution faster than standard gas, and it is bad for the air quality. So you're wondering why they're doing it now? Because the war in Iran has disrupted roughly 20% of the oil world supply. Gas prices are rising, Americans are angry, and the government needed a way to stretch the fuel supply and bring prices down without drilling new wells overnight. E15 is usually about 25 cents cheaper per gallon than the standard gas. That's the appeal they're giving us. But what I feel like is that ethanol has less energy in it than gasoline. Less energy means your engine has to burn more of it to do the same amount of work. That means slightly fewer miles per gallon. The saving at the pump may not really fully offset what you lose in the fuel efficiency over time, especially if you are a person that drives a lot. And if you drive older cars, okay, anything with older engines, old rubber seals, older fuel lines, higher ethanol content can actually cause damage. Same goes for motorcycles, boats, lawnmowers, generators, and even small engine equipment. The EPA's own guidance says most cars after 2001 can handle E15 without significant issues, but anything older than that can caution. Read the pump carefully and know that you're putting into your tank. And you know, social media has been loud about this when people are calling it diluted gas. The government is pushing back on that framing, saying it's not dilution. It is blended adjustment. But the reality on the ground is that 2/3 of gas consumers will be getting fuel with more ethanol and less pure gasoline than they're used to. You can call it whatever you want. The effect is going to be the same, essentially, we think. So to connect the dots, this waiver exists because of the Strait of Hormuz is being closed. The strait is closed because of the war. The war that was sold to American people public with 4 to 6 weeks timeline that is now stretching to a month with no clear exit. The cost of war is not just it lives overseas, it's showing up at our gas stations, at our grocery stores, and now in the chemical makeup of a fuel you put in your vehicle. The waiver is going to run through May 20th. Whether it gets extended depends on how long this war really continues. Now, while the Americans were debating on what gases are, and just like any other country is, the other side of the planet, okay, the world's largest military powers are staring down at each other, and one of them just made a move nobody saw coming. Japan did something that's never been done before in the modern era. It deployed its first domestically developed long-range missile and pointed it at the direction of mainland China. Okay, the missile is called Upgraded Type 12. It was developed and built by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and is now officially operational at Camp Kangun, a military base in Kumamoto Prefecture in southwestern Japan. So the range of the missile is approximately 620 miles. That is massively jumped from the original version, which had a range of only 125 miles. So at 620 miles, this missile can reach mainland China. Okay, Japan's defense minister said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that Japan faces the most severe and complex security environment since World War II, and that this deployment demonstrated Japan's firm determination to defend itself. China did not take that quietly. Their Ministry of National Defense issued a stern warning that the People's Liberation Army official newspaper called it a kill network, accusing Japan of building a system capable of striking both coastal and inland areas of neighboring countries. China's foreign minister said that the missile is clearly transitioning from a defensive weapon to a long-range offensive system. Now, here's the context that we have to understand. Japan approved a record defense budget this year exceeding $58 billion. That is a historic for a country that after World War II adopted a constitution that severely limits its military to self-defense only. For decades, Japan did not develop offensive strike capabilities. That has now changed. Why now? Well, last June, Japan spotted 2 Chinese aircraft carriers operating near Japanese remote islands in the Pacific simultaneously. For the first time ever, Japan's prime minister has stated publicly that any Chinese military action against Taiwan could be grounds for Japanese military response, and China has increasingly been aggressive in South China Sea and the waters around Taiwan. Now, on social media, the commotions and the communities are saying this conversation isn't just about Japan and China. It's about whether this is the beginning of a broader Asian-specific arms race. South Korea, the Philippines, Australia, all watching this closely. Analysts are comparing the current moment in Asia to Europe in years before World War I. Multiple powers militarizing simultaneously with no clear diplomatic framework to contain it. And now, if you connect the dots, war in Middle East, NATO is fracturing, and now Japan, one of the, you can say America's most closest Pacific allies, is deploying offensive long-range missiles while threatening to respond militarily to any Chinese actions against Taiwan. And now one of Africa's most powerful nations just made a decision that has never been made before. South Africa just put soldiers on civilian streets. President Ramaphosa authorized the deployment of 2,200 soldiers across 5 South African 9 provinces. In active deployment, soldiers working alongside overwhelmed police officers to combat violent crimes, illegal mining operations, and gang activities that has gotten severely worse. South Africa already has one of the highest murder rates in the world. Illegal mining, known locally as Zama operation, has become a sophisticated criminal enterprise involving organized armed groups who descend into abandoned mines, often holding workers hostage and engaging in violent confrontations with police. So this deployment is scheduled for 1 year. Under South African law, soldiers deployed in a civilian context can only arrest someone under very specific and limited circumstances and most immediately hand any detained person over to the police. So this is not a martial law, okay? Critics are pushing back. Human rights organizations and opposition politicians have argued that military deployments in civilian areas rarely solve the root cause of the crime, poverty, unemployment, inequality, and often lead to increased human rights violations. South Africa's unemployment rate sits above 30%. For young people, it's closer to 60%. Those numbers are the soil that crimes grow in, and soldiers do not and cannot fix that. And United Kingdom announced last month that it will cut its aid to Africa by more than half over the next 3 years. This comes as, on top of the United States slashing its own foreign aid under the current administration. According to NPR, organizations and government across the continent are describing this as potentially unsurvivable, especially when both cuts are happening simultaneously. And if you look at African Twitter now, X has been super vocal. The conversation centers on a painful irony. The same Western nations that extracted wealth from Africa for centuries through colonization and resource exploitations are now withdrawing the humanitarian support that was already insufficient to address the crisis those same systems created. Many are calling an abandonment dressed as a budget discipline. Now, if you find this kind of content valuable to you, subscribe, drop a comment, share with someone who needs to be paying attention. Your engagement is what keeps this channel alive and independent. I leave you all in the care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Fi amanillah.